So let's start with company actions, and then we'll bring the government perspective in the middle. Maybe GSK first. So what is your carbon footprint? What are the key drivers, the plastic wrapping or whatever in your case? And what is the ambition at GSK?
Thanks a lot, Peter, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Thibault Desmarest, in French, sorry.
Well, Desmarest, c'est bien ça.
So just before answering to your question, Peter, let me give few words about GSK, because I'm not so sure that everybody knows GSK. So it's a global biopharma. We are investing in research. We are investing in clinical development, manufacturing, but also commercialization of drugs, but also vaccines. I don't know if you're aware, but 4 children out of 10 in the world are vaccinated by a GSK product. So we have a very, very important mission. So now if you look at GSK in France, because we are in France today, I'm French, I cannot hide it. We have 3 production sites, so it's the only European country with 3 production sites at GSK, and about 3,500 people working for GSK. And we strongly believe that a healthy planet and healthy people are strongly connected. So if you want to get ahead of disease, you do not need only to develop drugs, you need also to work on climate, you need to work also on nature. And this is what we are now doing, knowing that the SHIFT project, that you know well, I've said that in France, the healthcare system is representing about 8% of the total emission, which is not small. And the drug is about 1/3 of it. So what we have decided, and it's a pretty, I would say, bold commitment from our CEO, is to achieve nature positive, net zero by 2045 and 2030 for the entire group GSK. And we want, with our 3 production sites in France, to be the #1 contributor to this very ambitious goal. So that's in a nutshell where we are and what is GSK.
Very good. We'll definitely want to come and dig into some of the timing. But first, so when you think about actions, where do you need to address to make, what are the key things you need to make progress on?
So I really like what Maya said. I'm not really good with the Rubik's Cube, so very quickly, it's going, okay, boom, I'm not doing it. So what we are doing, let's say, basically 3 things. Number 1 is a greener product. Number 2 is a greener industry. And the third one is invest in people. But before giving a little bit more kind of information, can I ask people here, is there people who are taking Ventolin or knowing someone taking Ventolin? This is this spray, so can you please raise your hands? Wow. So you see?
This is the problem.
So, and I don't know if you're aware, but Ventolin represents half of the carbon footprint of GSK worldwide. So 50% of our carbon footprint is due to the gas and the use of these products, so production and use. So what we are now doing is we don't want to do thousands of things. So we really want you to be focused on few things, but you do it well and you do it with a lot of resources. So this is what we are now doing today with GSK. So we have a site in Évreux, so it's not too far away from Paris, for the non-French. So we are now investing on an R&D program to develop a new gas, which is much greener, and that can reduce by 90% the impact of Ventolin. So this is what I mean by greener in a product. On greener industry, we are investing, and we are investing a lot, because last week at Choose France, we have announced that we are investing 400 million in France for the next 3 years with GSK, within GSK, and 240 million euro is going to our production site. Modernization, digitalization, and also decarbonation. So that's what we are now doing, investing on our greener industry. Third, but not the least one, is people. So I've got some members of my team here, so all smiling. And here, what we are now doing at GSK, we are investing on people by also communicating a lot internally. So we've got our ESG report that we are doing, that we are mobilizing the team. We've got some shifters who came to the office this week, talking about the impact of digital, closing your laptop, sending less email, this type of very simple things that can really impact. And we are, for example, also moving all the fleet car to 100% electric by 2030, which is not a given in France. So this is what we are doing, in a nutshell, at
Very
GSK
nice.
for the time being.
All right, we definitely want to hear from the French government soon, but first, maybe Mathieu from KPMG. You're looking at many different companies. Is this representative? What kind of trends are you seeing with your client interest, engagements on this? And again, what about effective actions that you see people taking?
Yeah, actually, we do see a very strong momentum. Just to give you two numbers, is that we did have a very strong activity. We tripled over the past 2 years, and we expect our activity to further triple for the next 3 years. So it's a very large momentum. It's in every discussion with our clients, actually. First, we discussed about the pressure coming from the regulation, the pressure coming from the clients or the consumers, but also the pressure coming from shareholders and other stakeholders. So we do feel with our clients this very strong pressure. That's behind a very, very high momentum. The way we assist our clients is really pragmatic. The starting point is very much to set a high ambition to reduce the carbon footprint for the supply chain. And obviously, you need behind that to build a relevant strategy, a roadmap, and then you need to have a strong assessment. During the keynote, it was mentioned about the quality of the data, and that's really, really a key concern, and I can really jump on it. It's really important to have a reliable data to build a reliable assessment. Probably two other topics that are relevant, I guess, is collaboration. And I guess you've mentioned that already. It's fundamental to have a collaboration between all the stakeholders. And probably a last example of concrete action is about investing. Investing, for instance, in energy. And I would like just to stress about what we are doing for our clients, building end-to-end solutions to help them in reducing their carbon footprint by proposing some alternative sourcing of energy through power purchase agreements. It's a fantastic opportunity to source alternative and low carbon energy, but also to secure for the long term pricing and sourcing. And we know from the recent months, and we are currently in a current crisis of energy, that is so critical. And we are seeing for the past 24 months, a very, very high boom of PPA with our clients.
Very nice. Just maybe on the people side, in terms of pressure, do you find from bringing junior talent into KPMG, does the focus on sustainability help?
Yeah, it helps a lot, and I can also reiterate what we have announced a year ago, that we are now a purpose-led company, an entreprise à mission, with the accent. Oh. And it's not an answer, it's a beginning of a journey, and definitely it's completely aligned with expectations coming from our clients and our people.
Yeah. All right, now Bruno, clearly, as you said, it takes a partnership. Government is a key actor. What's your view on the proper role of government in decarbonizing supply chains? And again, a little bit on what France is doing in this space.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, at the Secrétariat Général pour l'Investissement, as you spelled it well, right? Make it simple, France 2030, right?
Very good.
What we do is supporting all those initiatives with 54 billion euros that have been dedicated to innovation. Innovation meant as a way to find solutions and really take over all this problematic that were described before. What we do concretely, we help companies to invest in risky business. Like obviously when the company just mentioned greener product, greener factories, greener attitude, right? Very often the shareholders are reluctant to overinvest in meaning, well, is it really right? And if the global feeling is definitely around this idea that we need to work with a certain emergency, we've seen that definitely government is helping. But we've lived this before. We are at this stage of our society, I would say even at our humanity, where we're moving from a kind of ugly caterpillar into a wonderful butterfly. What do I mean? I mean that we've seen that we're totally changing the way we see life. We overused resources on the planet, and now we have to optimize them. We used to take all those externalities away from the company's responsibilities, and now we integrate them into it. We're looking for more meanings in what we're doing. And all this, if there is no big effort for government to help to accelerate this, will take years, and we don't have any more time. That's why the government is definitely trying to support all innovations in different fields, health, materials, digital, to make it happen.
Maybe just a little briefer on a big issue in France, which is around decarbonization of energy supply. How does that play in, and a little bit the French perspective there?
So 50% of what we, that's a commitment from the National Assembly. 50% of this budget must be dedicated to decarbonization, which includes, of course, the supplies of decarbonized energy. And we know we have debates about, for instance, the nuclear energy. And we think that we want to mix nuclear and renewable energies because we feel it's a safer way to go. Once more, back to this Rubik cube analogies, with one of the face of this cube for us in France is nuclear energy. It's not the same situation in different countries, so we have to go through compromises. But at the end of the day, I don't know if anybody is right or wrong. I know that for sure, one of this obsession of reducing carbon footprint is the target, the common target for all government. And if we proven wrong down the road, fine, we'll adopt other strategies. But as far as the French government is concerned, we feel like this is a mix between this investment in nuclear and renewable energy that will make it at the end of the day.
Very good. And then maybe, again, as you started to do, focusing beyond France, what's your thought on the variation in policies across countries? Is some of the competition we're seeing healthy, productive? Is the collaboration sufficient?
Well, three different points. First, the awareness of this climate change is at different level in different countries. I was just before discussing on the floor with the major cosmetic companies, and they've made huge effort in creating greener products. For instance, solid shampoo, right? But effectively, fact is that in some countries, the habits of people are such that they don't buy solid shampoo. And it reduced by whatever, 70, 50, 80,
Want to ask how many people
90%.
use solid shampoo? No.
Yeah, how many of you use this? A good example.
Now's the time. You can
Well, because
proudly.
and that's the reason why you come at ChangeNOW, because you're a certain profile. But the reality is that, because I just got these numbers, 200 million bottles of shampoos are sold in France per year, and only 1 million of those 200 are solid shampoo. Just to say that will take time. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try and try and try again. And that's the principle of this common effort and joint effort.
Thibault, the pharma industry has a long history of interacting with government. Maybe you could comment a little bit from your perspective on the role of government in decarbonization, but how also it's interacting with other government policies sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good question, because decarbonation obviously comes with massive investment. Especially, with production side. So, and this is where, the difficult equation, or usually I call it, the scissor effect, where you've got in one hand inflation, about 30% for us, huge investment, as we have just communicated, is 400 million, and then the other end you've got pricing of drugs, which are regulated because it's reimbursed by the social security in France, and France has the lowest price in Europe. And at the same time, the pharma industry is one of the most taxable, I don't know if it's English, industries. So, and the tax are going up every year and every year. So that's where it's extremely complicated for us, because you want, and we've got a strong will of investing and doing some decarbonation, but at the same time, like food industry, where you can increase your price, for example, to follow the inflation, we cannot do it. So this is this difficult scissor effect that, as you're saying, which is difficult to manage. So that's why we need to work with government on pricing, on taxes, getting some support also to decarbonate, for example, Ventolin. Ventolin is about €2 for 200 puff. which is, and the decarbonation of this product is hundreds and hundreds of millions of euros to do it for a product which is, okay, most sold at the price of the cost of goods. So that's where the equation is difficult, and we need to work together as one.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe Mathieu, do you want to, before we go back to Bruno and put him on the spot on the price of Ventoline? No, but comments on like what you're seeing in terms and perspectives on the role of private and public partnership here.
Yeah, I think that probably back on government, probably to make some perspective. I think that we strongly believe that there is a place through regulation, and that regulation is a significant driver, to make the transition and to push and to put pressure on companies. And we appreciate that there is a gap of maturity between large corporates and mid-sized companies, and probably the difference between regulation for these two categories of companies is probably one of the reason. So we strongly believe that regulation is a very good driver to increase the maturity of ESG within the companies. But probably back to your question, it was around private enterprise and
public. Well, actually, even just on that, maybe just start. Given where you sit, what's your view on sort of reporting standards, and to what extent can the industry sort of get that right, or do you really going to need government to be more forceful on?
Yeah, and actually, if I can jump on this one, it's very much to build on this regulation, which is, by the way, very complex to understand. And honestly, our clients are really anxious about the regulation, have some difficulties to navigate, and part of our role at KPMG is very much to cut through the complexity of this regulation. But again, we are on the right side of the regulation. We consider it's a positive thing to move forward. So again, the role is very much to make the regulation effective, and behind the regulation, it's a question of transparency. And through transparency, it's a question of quality of data. And this is also where we are playing a key role, because as auditors, we put a stamp on such data. So it's a question of trust. But imagine a world sooner than later where we have the full data available, accurate, with the right level of trust. I think that we could do much more.
Bruno, I want to bring you back in, not to push you on pharmaceutical pricing, but just at the more a big picture, what you think is realistic in terms of the timing here, right? So COP26, lots of commitments, lots of enthusiasm, but now we're confronting some of the messy reality of getting there. You've been elected to the National Assembly. You understand the politics of pushing up pricing. What's your perspective?
Well, first of all, we have to kill, I would say, a public opinion that we're late, because France is actually on time for net zero in 2050. We understand the complexity of it. That's why all this data complexity is there. We understand the investment needed, and sometimes the public opinion is late in understanding it, because I understand people live a daily life, and they would complain, well, you invest $54 billion euros in something, and what about schools? What about hospitals? What about my daily life? And then obviously comes the question of the taxes, obviously. How do you finance this? And the answer is, how do you finance life and death, right? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a planet which is in the emergency room. And in this ER room, we need priorities. We need to decide what we do right and wrong. So in terms of timing, I think the last thing to do when you're on an icy road is to brake. That's the last thing you want to do. You have to, quite the opposite, you have to accelerate, which is not the natural instinct of someone driving, right? Except if you live in Canada or if you live in the middle of the North Pole. Usually when you're on the icy road, you brake. And then you spin, and you never know when you're going. So the role of the government is first to warn you, this is an icy road. Secondly, to teach you, and that's why we're spending 3 billion euros with France 2030 into education to add 1 million people with those new skills, new processes, new structure, new ways to build buildings, and so on. And the third responsibility of the government is to make sure that we understand that things has to be in order, and the responsibility of the government is just to tell the truth that yes, if we don't do this, we will not be able to move to a situation that will get you better. So quality of life goes through those efforts, which needs from the government kind of courage to just say honestly that no, when you're in ER room, you don't treat the patient the same way than when it's just in a very convenient place. And the last thing is like the best thing for Ventolin to reduce his carbon footprint is to get a better air, right? A better quality of air, so you don't need to use it, and then mechanically it will be better, a better life for everyone.
Nice. Thank you, Bruno.
Would you agree?
Very nice. Let me maybe pick up on, I'd be interested, the other two panelists think about your talk about skills that we need to build. So when you think about training people, raising awareness, that whole area of this transition, any thoughts on what you're seeing as key skills, capabilities? Yeah, you can start.
Very much increasing the skill of our talents is critical. And thank you for this question. I can really announce today that we have
this was not planned.
Yeah. Okay. That we have built a leadership and training program with HEC, so a well-known business school in France, to really upskill our talents in ESG. So it starts next month. So we will announce. It will be announced tomorrow. So you have the privilege of this 24 hours in advance. So well done. But obviously, we have two key pillars. It is very much to be dedicated to our clients and to assist our clients. But more than that, training our people and upskilling our people to the right expertise, because it is what we deliver to our clients. It's so important.
So for me, it's a little bit what I've said earlier. I think, it's extremely important. We've got a responsibility, as leadership of an organization, to show the way. So it's exactly what we are doing, pushing, our corporate office, to invest in France, to do this greener product. So this is what we are doing in France. So pitching, our group, to make sure that. So after employees see it and say, okay, so we have the will, we have the level of investment. So GSK in France is really leading the way in this carbon footprint reduction. So after it's sending a strong message to your teams and employees. So, okay, if they are doing it at this level, what can I do at my level? And this is what also we are doing with the shifter, what I was saying earlier, and different, a lot of activities, but small one, one by one. You go really layer by layer, and everybody can, have this contribution. And we've got some very good examples today. For example, we are doing the public-private. We were speaking earlier, and just was thinking that we have a big vaccine site in the north of France, and we are producing for almost 120 countries. And here, we have done a partnership with the state, with EDF, to install, to put some heat pump. So it's really seems to be simple. It's massive investment, again, but we are reducing by 50% the emission, and we are reducing also the energy cost that we were mentioning earlier. And that's really a strong will. And if you do it in your factory, you could do it at home also, and you just showcase. And this is the way you do it. It's kind of a positive cycle.
Just one brief thing from INSEAD. So over the last few years, we started building more sustainability teaching and modules, and it wasn't selling, for example. People would ask about it, oh, that's really nice. And in the last, 12, 14 months, it started to sell. So you really start to see companies now getting more serious and building the skills. So it's one encouraging sign. Maybe one last thing before we wrap up. Maybe, Mathieu, we need to look, obviously, for all the leverage points we can. And if I think about business and transforming business, one huge area of capability is private equity. I'm not sure how many private equity people we've seen around here, but they have tremendous business models and capabilities in transforming. I guess you work with some of them. What's your view on, are we going to see some of that engine linked up to green and decarbonization?
I really believe that PE firms can really make a change. Just to give you one number, PE firms contribute altogether $3 trillion in terms of cash available, And if you consider the financial indebtedness, you can even double or triple this amount. So it's not a question of cash. The cash is here and is available for investment. And by the way, we have seen an increase of alternative fund dedicated to investment in ESG. But more than that, and I will share with you a second key number, is that 30% of mid-sized companies in France have a PE firm as a shareholder. So it's a massive opportunity for them to transform companies in that direction and to invest properly to make a better future and to transform that business model.
Yeah. So anyway, for those who are with solutions, we definitely need to build bridges between people with the solutions and some of these private equity firms over the coming years. All right, we're going to wrap up. I guess as you look at the audience, any last piece of advice or call to action for corporate leaders in this space, your peers?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first. Yeah.
So what I like to say is adopt a AAA strategy. So I mean by AAA, it's assess, address, and act. So it's pretty simple, but the assessment is really understanding your carbon footprint. Sometimes, as you said, Maya, it's very difficult, but let's give it a try. Address, you know where you've got some gaps and you really understand what you could potentially do. So really address these different matters, layers by layers. You don't want to do everything at the same time. And the last one is act. Act is like for us, in our case, we know that 50% of the carbon footprint is coming from one product. So rather than doing thousands of things, act, prioritize, and invest where you can really have an impact. So AAA.
Very good. Mathieu, and then Bruno, you're going to get the last one.
Yeah, happy to join here. I think that the direction of travel is very clear. There is a question around accelerating the pace of execution, and that's really crystallizing some value for those who can anticipate. And more than ever, you should put ESG in everything you do.
All right. Bruno, closing words.
Well, in the situation we're in, I think the most important action is to build trust. To build trust and to make people believe. And if you doubt about it, look in my back. This thing, the Eiffel Tower, at that time, was just impossible to conceive and to build. And effectively, it's here. And it's been used at the originally just as a showcase of technologies, so something fairly useless. But now it's used as one of the main transmitter of information and telecommunication of Paris. Which means that, as the Japanese says, inase banaru, which means if there is a will, there is a way, and there's definitely a will at the government.
All right. Thank you. Big round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen.